Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Mike Talbott. I am the product director here at Board International, and the topic of today's discussion is the benefits of BI and CPM unification. And to be honest with you, I'm surprised that anybody's here at all, because I'm speaking to our customers and our partners, and you already know the benefits of BI and CPM unification. This topic has the potential to be very salesy, and I realize that you're not here for a sales presentation, so my goal is to provide maybe a different viewpoint into the benefits of BI and CPM unification than you might have previously thought. Different perspective, maybe a different higher level theoretical approach to this. So hopefully you find something new here, some new connections that you might not have made previously in regards to this topic. So really the questions that I'm hoping to answer in this session are, first, why do we do it? Why do we combine BI and CPM in the first place? What are the theoretical underpinnings behind that assumption? As well as, why is Board the only product that does this, that really does it from a truly integrated standpoint? There's many other products on the market. How come Board is unique in this respect? So I'll talk about that in my perspective on why I think that is. And then finally, we'll drill down into the detailed, specific benefits that we get through unification. So that's kind of the outline for the presentation. The first two we'll knock off pretty quick, and then we'll end up on going into more of the details behind the specific benefits. So, number one, why do we do this? Why do we combine BI and CPM? And really, Board is a combined business intelligence and CPM toolkit. It's a platform for both of these. So the benefits that we get by combining BI and CPM are really the same benefits we get through any type of application platform integration. Platforms provide value by eliminating inefficiencies that come when we have disparate functionality that has to be integrated together. When we put it into a platform, we remove barriers, we make things more efficient, things become faster, simpler, but probably more important is we can develop new types of applications that were previously impossible or infeasible economically without a platform. And one of my favorite examples of this is the smartphone. The smartphone is an application platform. We're all familiar with it. It has a collection of different features. It has an interactive display. It has CPU, storage, networking, telecommunications, a microphone, a speaker, GPS, compass, accelerometer. You guys are familiar with this. The magic happens when we combine them into a single platform. Oftentimes, these features might not be the best. Certainly, it's the best display in a smartphone of that size. And the camera is very good, although not the best of breed. It doesn't replace a Nikon SLR. Doesn't have the most memory, doesn't have the most storage, not the fastest networking, doesn't have the best GPS. But when you combine them together, entirely new types of applications are available and possible through the integration of these features. And applications that have transformed industries, have influenced global politics, applications like Twitter, the acceleration of social media with Facebook, Uber with taxi services. Some of these might just be relevant to the US, but I'm sure there's counterparts here in Europe. Square, Yelp, TripAdvisor. I mean, the list is endless. We're all familiar with how these integrating these onto the mobile platform have really transformed the way that we do business and the way that we interact with everybody. And it's that combination, it's that integration on a platform that really provides that value. One of my favorite examples of an integrated application on the smartphone, this one completely blows my mind. I think it uses every feature that's included in a smartphone. If any of you are familiar with aviation, there's an application or several applications you can run on your phone that allow you allow a pilot not only to plan his flight, including aircraft performance, weather, navigation, air structures, et cetera, or airspace, et cetera, But that pilot could sit on the runway in zero visibility, enough to get down the road, and on his phone, he has the capabilities to replicate his entire cockpit, except for his engine instruments. And he can take off in zero visibility, climb, completely control the attitude of the aircraft through the accelerometers and link to another device. He has access to en route traffic. He can get weather along the way. He can fly his flight plan. He can access his approach. He can fly his approach with vertical guidance. All in instrument, zero visibility conditions. He can pop out at less than 100 meters under the clouds and see his destination airport. Not legal, but all capable through the functionality provided in a smartphone. Now, I'm sure even the engineers and the pioneers in the smartphone industry, Steve Jobs, Apple, the others, never envisioned this type of application would be feasible. But when we start packing together different features, we got the compass, we got the communications, we have all of these things, that's when the magic happens. And the same concept applies when we unify BI and CPM. Okay, maybe not as grandiose, but these same concepts apply. So that's, at a high level, why we've undertaken this, and we think, you're being here, you're being familiar with the product, you understand that we can produce new types of applications that just aren't practical or economically feasible using disparate approaches. So, Board is still, if this is so great, why is Board the only one that does this? Really, if we look at Gartner's Magic Quadrants, we see the concept of platforms is not new. We have business intelligence platforms, we have corporate performance management platforms. Clearly, people understand the value of a platform. How come Board is the only dot on both of those? That's a single product. Well, before I get into that, it certainly speaks volumes to Board's capabilities as standalone, being able to address standalone CPM use cases, standalone business intelligence use cases. But really, the magic occurs when we combine the two. And that's what I'm going to talk to you about today, and we'll go into more detail. Incidentally, you might notice a couple mega vendors on this that are in both platforms. They have different, they're not a single product, they're not well integrated. They're typically, if it's Oracle, they bought Hyperion. If it's SAP, they bought OutlookSoft, and they have just completely separate products in each of these spaces. And their idea of integration is, well, really at the invoice line. And if you're not familiar with this concept, integration at the invoice level of detail is when Oracle sends you an invoice as the customer, and that's where the integration occurs. They're really two separate products, but they're integrated when you get one bill. So Board is the only product that's truly integrated in both of these. And why is this? Is it because there really aren't efficiencies in here? Is this like us trying to put a microphone and a microwave and a smartphone together? Does it not make sense? Well, clearly that's false. We know that there's inherent benefits through integration. CPM typically gets its data from BI applications. They share a lot of the same functionality around reporting and analysis. So inherently, we know there's benefits to integration. How come nobody else is doing this? The reason is, in my opinion, that it's very, very hard challenge. And each platform addresses two fundamentally different technical challenges. BI, we'll go into detail on each of these, but BI and CPM, they require two different architectures, two different sets of technology, and once they've embarked on one path or the other, they can't combine them. And many have tried, and they've always failed. To achieve a true integration and the benefits that we get through integration, it requires initial design towards this purpose of this common goal. And that's why Board is unique, and essentially, you just can't take something that's purposely built to run on top of a data warehouse and have that automatically start doing CPM type stuff, and vice versa. So that's why I believe there's no other products out there on the market. We know there's efficiencies, and we'll get into those in just a few minutes. So to help understand how they're different, how they're technically different, I think it's best to let's talk about BI first, and then we'll talk about CPM, and we'll understand how they're different, what makes them different, and why why there isn't another solution that does both. The best way to expose what BI is and what CPM is to examine the critical capabilities they provide. What does this give me as a business user? And this is Gartner's list. This isn't my list. But if you look at what BI does, it's about, and we don't have to go through all these, infrastructure, data management, analysis, content creation. It's about the collection, management, and presentation of quantitative information. If you look at, this is the same list here, if you look at each of these, this is all about historical information. It's about taking measures that we've already captured and making them available to the business. It's backward-looking at best. It allows us to answer questions, what happened or what is happening. Notice that there's nothing here about the future. It doesn't talk about what will happen. And this is, again, this is Gartner's critical capabilities list. It's, fundamentally all the major vendors have been offering query analysis and reporting capabilities, and really there's no forward-looking capabilities. You're starting to see some of this now with analytics, where the vendors are bolting on purpose-built models, but really there's no general purpose, future, forward-looking modeling capabilities that we have in BI. Just a quick example, just to flip over. So what we see in a BI system is essentially it boils down to two types of information that we provide to the business. We have metrics, numerical information that can be aggregated or used in computations, and then we have categorical information that we use to group the numerical information into different categories. And really that's all we're doing. We're just providing users with countless different ways to aggregate that data, bucket the data, and display the data. So when we look at a typical BI type application, we're seeing numeric data, our metrics, some lightweight calculations based on the data returned here. All of this is metric data. Here we're starting to see some categorical information, how this is rolled up. We can filter based on categorical information. You're familiar with the nature of these applications. Even more advanced visualizations, it's still the same data. It's the same. You're still just taking numeric values and grouping them into different buckets. You're just representing it differently on a map, in a scatter plot, whatever. It really just boils down to those two things. So that's BI, and again, it's exclusively historical. There's no concept of materializing data or creating data and writing it to somewhere else from the business user standpoint. Okay, let's turn the page now and look at CPM a little more. Now, CPM is the exact opposite. CPM is about the future. If we look at Gartner's list of critical capabilities, all of these things are forward-looking. Financial budgeting and planning, right? It's about the future. I'll look at this one. Integrated financial planning, okay? It's even more detailed, but still forward-looking. Strategy management, obviously the future. Profitability model, well, it's the same type of modeling that we use for budgeting and planning. A P&L budget is nothing more than a big profitability model. And then, of course, there's also some BI-type functionality, management reporting, forecasting, financial performance consolidation, et cetera. But the fundamental technical challenge with CPM is about the future, or what will happen. I guess I should go that way. And really, what CPM systems offer the user is what-if modeling. All of these things are what-if models. A budget is just one big what-if model. What if my sales are this and my cost structures look like this? And then I just iterate through and iterate through. That's, a budget is a what-if model. Integrated financial planning, same thing. Strategy management, profitability management. Fundamentally, the core element of the model is a what-if simulation. So that's what CPM gives us. It's forward-looking and it's about modeling. Okay, and just to illustrate some of the differences, if we look at a very, very simple example of a CPM application, here it's a model. where we have a profit and loss budget. Our goal is to create a forward-looking corporate P&L, fill that up with information, and we do that using a collection of different models. We have a model to calculate our sales, another one to, once we've calculated sales, we have dependencies to calculate discounts, commissions, cost of sales. We can integrate, use other information. You know, so we build this model that has dependencies, and we ultimately get to, yes. Ah, let me try something different. That's funny. Did you see the BI examples earlier? Okay. Well, I can, there we go. It's that it didn't escape from, there we go. Yes, thanks for interrupting me. That would have been, that would have taken a while to redo. Okay, so we have this example of a budgeting application where it's a collection of models. We start with sales, sales influence, discounts, cost of sales, commissions, et cetera, et cetera. These models are interrelated, and they all flow to, you know, a forward-looking P&L, which the purpose of the whole exercise is to populate new data based on all of the data available to me. So just a quick look. This is, you know, they look very different. This one is just something I built for this presentation. It's not very attractive, but you get the idea. You can see how they link together. There's a process, and it's very forward-looking. Okay, so let's move on. Now, from a business standpoint, does it make sense that BI is historic-looking and we have a different platform for our forward-looking modeling? Do we not need, as business users, both at the same time? You know, why should we work in two different environments? And the answer is absolutely. Business users need the capability to not only answer questions about what happened, but to answer questions about what would happen if. And really, CPM and BI, they boil down to the same challenge, and that is decision-making. You know, both of them are there to help us with decisions. And if you look at the decision-making process, and I didn't invent this, this comes from you know, something we can all agree with that we all go through to make decisions. It comes from academic studies, et cetera. We all go through a series of steps when we make decisions, whether it's data-based or intuitive. First, we need to understand the situation that we face. If it's a business, maybe we observe that we're losing market share to our competitors. We obviously want to understand why and where they're gaining market share. From that, we might generate new alternatives. Say we recognize that our competitors are gaining market share because they're taking advantage of new channels. And you know, we want to explore our own business incorporating new sales channels as well, whether it's online or maybe direct sales, whatever our business is, we need to evaluate various alternatives, generate alternatives, and then evaluate those alternatives. And then finally, based on what we've seen, we make the decision. So we go through this process no matter what we're doing. Now, if we look at the technology that supports this, we see that the first step, understanding the situation, is BI's sweet spot. It tells us what happened, what is happening. However, when we move to the next phase to generate the alternatives and evaluate the alternatives, we need a modeling tool for this. We need to create an abstraction of our business or our world so that we can change assumptions and see how those might play out in a very complex system. And so this is where that CPM capability is typically used. But business users need this as well. And then, you know, once we have these models, we can evaluate our alternatives, and then, of course, once it's all laid out, it's very easy to make a decision. But if you look at the second step, generate alternatives and evaluate alternatives, This is really why after decades of advancements in business intelligence, huge investments in business intelligence, this is really the crux of why most companies are still using Excel to support their decision making. It's because Excel's a modeling tool. Above everything else, it's a modeling tool. And it's a modeling tool, it's a general purpose modeling tool built for business users. And that right there is why we're not seeing the end of Excel. We're all aware of Excel's limitations and challenges. It was built as a personal productivity tool. We can talk more about the limitations of that later, but really it's that next step that requires CPM. The evaluate alternative step, we need both CPM and modeling, right? If we have a model, we want to evaluate the output, we need the analytic capabilities in BI, so we really need both capabilities there. But you understand that we need these as business users together in one environment. Okay, so this is kind of the end where I'm bringing it all together and talking about the specifics that we get with combining BI and CPM. The first is this notion that I've been talking about. We can close the loop on the decision-making process. The business user gets the modeling capabilities available that are available with typical CPM systems. So, we can address that use case. That's something that we don't have. We can get out of Excel. Excel is great. Our current users, our current business community is relying on Excel, but like I mentioned, security concerns, data quality concerns, all of the logic is defined in thousands of intersections of cells. It's very difficult. It's error-prone, difficult to maintain. Usually the only person that built it can maintain it. There's all kinds of problems with Excel. By integrating these in a single environment, all of those goes away, and we get much more power as well. The second benefit is that, flip the perspective, CPM now gets BI's data volumes and scalability. So, we now have access to all of the data in BI when they're integrated. We can build much larger models. Without going into the specifics of how we do this, Board is the most scalable, the most performant general purpose modeling tool out there. And it's because of the efficiencies we get through this low-level integration of BI and CPM capabilities. It was built to do precisely this. So CPM gets BI's volumes and scalability. We can create richer models, much more accurate models, which ultimately lead to better decisions. Okay, the third element leading to better decisions is flip back to CPM, and CPM gets BI's analysis capabilities. Now that we have these richer, more detailed models to make better decisions using much more granular level of detail, we need analytic capabilities to analyze the results of the models, make sure the models are accurate, make sure that they're producing the results we expect, better visualization to identify outliers and maybe problems where the model is. So CPM gets enhanced because it has BI's analytic capabilities. So again, all of these lead to better models, better decisions. Now, switching the focus a little bit, the integration also gives us faster decisions. So the first element of this is it removes the technical middleman. So currently, when we in a world, a non-board world, where you have BI and you have CPM as two separate systems, the business users, typically finance, needs a model, and the data exists in Excel or in data warehouse or in a BI system, and it requires technologists to get the information that the decision maker, the Office of Finance needs to support their model. And so these systems, purpose-built CPM systems, usually aren't very scalable, can't handle large data volumes, so the data has to be aggregated, and we need to choose the measures we want to support this model. Now, that's great once you build your first iteration, but the business has changed. You want to improve the model. This is not a static activity of our forward-looking models. So we need to enhance this. We need to add new data. We need to add more granularity. Whatever it is, Now there's a technical middleman that has to go and do this mapping and develop the integrations so that these two remain in sync if they're two separate systems. So by integrating these all in one platform, there is none of that. The business user, the modeler, has access to all of the data in the BI system to build their models. So all of that granularity, should they choose to use it, all of the categorical roll-up structures, all the hierarchies, everything available in BI is immediately available for the business user to expand and extend their model without having to rely on IT or somebody technical to give them more data or more granularity. So obviously that shortens cycle times, helps us have much more flexible and extensible solutions. And finally, somewhat related, but CPM, if we're building models or just modeling in general, we get all of the semantic layer that's been built for BI. So BI plugs into a lot of different data sources, and we rationalize that data, we standardize that data, and we transform it into business terms that business users use to build their reports and analysis. Now we can use those same structures to do our modeling. And that gives us, it gives us great improvements in simplicity. We don't have to rely on cryptic code in order to, or table names or any of that stuff to build out our models. We build our models in business terms. And just to kind of illustrate this, this model here, okay, within a very simple example of a sales calculation where the sales is calculated based on last year's sales times the growth rate by division. Calculations run at detail of customer, product, and month. But this model right here, just to illustrate how these are built, if you haven't seen this before, if you're not familiar with what's going on behind the scenes, this calculation is defined in a simple calculation procedure. It's defined just like we build reports, and it's done with business logic. So my sales budget is simply A multiplied by 1 plus B divided by 100. A is last year's sales, B is the sales growth rate metric that I have, and last year's sales is simply my sales metric with a previous year function applied. So these models are built using business terms, using business logic. So when we integrate the two, we can use all of that same semantic layer that's available to BI to build out our models. And it greatly simplified things because we're not dealing with cryptic code, cryptic table names, field names, et cetera. It's all the common standardized, certified business measures that we use everywhere else within BI. Okay, so let me just wrap up here. I started this presentation talking about smartphones, and let me bring all of these back up again. Oops. And I'll end it on the same notion. So everybody has a smartphone. I mean, essentially, they're ubiquitous. We all have them, but not everybody uses them the same way. We have, probably like everybody in this room, we've invested in learning about the platform, learning about the applications, and consequently we've seen tremendous improvements in our own personal productivity and quality of life. We have all of our contacts at our fingertips. Our calendars are in sync. We can make reservations with a few clicks. We can book travel while standing in line at the store. We can video conference with our family at home when we're on the road, and so on. Then there's other users, like my mother, for example, that she has a smartphone. She hasn't configured her voicemail. I'm pretty sure she dials all numbers manually. The point is, you only get out of it what you put into it. Like smartphones, if you invest in learning more about Board and the platform, I think you'll experience tremendous benefits. Many of you, I'm sure, already have. And also, if you're only using Board for BI and you're only using Board for CPM, you're probably missing the best part. And those are the efficiencies that we get through this integration. So thank you for attending Boardville 2017. If you have any questions during the week, please feel free to reach out to me. Again, my role here is product director, which is essentially charged with making sure our product meets the needs of the market. I handle both inbound product enhancement activities, getting feedback from all of you guys, bringing it to the engineering team, as well as outbound, where I'm taking information about our product and making it more available to the market in a clearer, more usable fashion. So you'll see some improvements in our things like our knowledge base and our documentation, et cetera, et cetera. So if you have questions for me throughout the week, please approach me, or any other board employee for that matter. So again, thank you, and hope you have a good conference.